So what we have for today is the disorders of the urinary system. And of course, I'm going to start with the anatomy and physiology. But before that, I hope you were able to view the 5-minute animated video of the introduction of the renal function. Because if you do, then you would understand the flow of our lecture even better. So to start off, the urinary system consists of 2 kidneys. Here's the right, and we have here the left. 2 ureters, which basically collects urine from the kidney and delivers it to our next structure, the urinary bladder. And then when the urinary bladder, which temporarily stores urine, starts to empty, urine passes through what we call as the urethra. So again, we have 2 kidneys, we have ureters right here, the urinary bladder, and the urethra. Although this picture may not show you quite obviously, the right kidney is slightly lower than the left, and that is because there is an organ just superior to it, and that is what we call the liver. And we did discuss the liver's location when we were doing the digestive system. Also, at the on top of each kidney, we have the adrenal gland. So this is the right adrenal gland and the left adrenal gland. And the adrenal gland is also known as the suprarenal gland. And that makes sense because supra pertains to superior, and the location of the adrenal gland is just superior to the kidneys. The adrenal gland is part of the endocrine system, although it secretes some hormones that play a role in urine formation or how the kidney maintains homeostasis ultimately. And that is the main function of the kidney, actually, to maintain homeostasis by way of maintaining acid-base balance, by maintaining fluid and electrolyte balance, by removing waste, and keeping the vital substances inside the body. So let's start off with the anatomy of the kidney. This is a longitudinal section of the kidney. You will see that the kidney is made up of the protective renal capsule. So being a vital organ, it has a protective capsule. But also besides the capsule, other protective structures of the kidney include perirenal fat. So if I had some yellow markers here, there is yellow fat surrounding the kidney, and it functions for protection because it has this cushioning property. Also, we know that the kidneys are protected by the lower ribs. And by the way, the kidneys are located in the at the back of the abdominal cavity. We call the location of the kidney retroperitoneal because it's at the back of the peritoneal cavity, and that is just at the level of your T12L2, the 12th thoracic vertebrae and the 2nd lumbar vertebra. That is again just above the waistline. And for the measurement of the kidney, the dimensions are 12 centimeters by 6 centimeters by 3 centimeters. So that is approximately the size of a large bar of soap. So that's how big, or we could say how small, the kidneys are. Anyway, once the kidneys are cut, you will see that the outer structure is called the cortex right here, and then the inner structure, or the inner region, is called the renal medulla. The renal medulla is made up of pyramids, although it's not that visible in here. So this line almost forms this triangular structure, and we will call it the medullary pyramids or the renal pyramids. So the kidney's main function is really to form urine so that it can maintain homeostasis in the body. And once urine is formed here in the cortex into the medulla, it will be collected by their next structure, which is the ureter. The ureter collects urine, but as you look here, the upper or superior expanded portion of the ureter is called the pelvis. So ureter, this is the expanded portion of the ureter known as the pelvis. And then the pelvis also has extensions, cup-like or cup-shaped extensions known as the renal calyces. So again, you have cortex, medulla, calyx, pelvis, and then ureter. Now going back to our earlier picture, The kidney, being bean-shaped organs, has an indentation. That indentation is called the hilum, and that is where vessels enter and leave the kidney. Like right here, the pelvis and the ureter enter or leave the kidney at the hilum. The renal artery, red, we always use red for arteries, and the renal vein, blue, they also enter and leave the kidney at the hilum. This renal artery is a branch of the abdominal aorta, right here, while the renal vein is a tributary of the inferior vena cava coming from the heart. So let's move on to our next structure. We have said earlier that ureters convey or transport urine from the kidneys into the urinary bladder. So see what happens here. We have a kidney stone lodging in the ureter, and what results from this is that urine can no longer flow down through the ureter to the urinary bladder. So there will be a backing up of urine, and that will cause what we call as hydronephrosis. Hydro means water, and nephrosis pertains to a condition of the kidney. But technically it's not really water that congests the kidney, it's urine, although urine is 99.8% made up of water. So besides the stone, this could also be a tumor, or this could be some stricture or scarring or stenosis. But as long as it sort of narrows this pathway, it will always result to hydronephrosis. So here is our picture again of our ureter and the layers of the kidney. And we are going to take a section of the kidney right here, a section of the cortex and the medulla, and examine it under the microscope or with our lenses, and this is what will show up, although this is mostly a diagrammatic illustration. What you will see are nephrons. A nephron is the structural and functional unit of the kidney, meaning the actual function of the kidney happens at the nephron level. We have about 1 million nephrons per kidney, and this picture shows you 2 of those 1 million nephron in this kidney. So let's look at just one nephron and study the structures of the nephron, because that way we will be able to understand the physiology and the pathology later on. So this is one nephron from this picture. That's one nephron, and we are enlarging it. And the nephron is made up of, first, the glomerulus. So this is the glomerulus, which is really a bundle of capillaries. It is bundle of capillaries, blood vessels. It starts with the afferent arteriole, which brings blood into the glomerulus, and then you have the efferent arteriole, which brings blood away from the glomerulus but moves down to basically supply blood to the next part of the nephron, which would be the series of tubules. Okay, so next to the glomerulus is the Bowman's capsule right here. The Bowman's capsule is the beginning of your renal tubule, and that is where the glomerulus rests upon. So glomerulus, Bowman's capsule, and then we have a coiled segment of our tubule, and we will call it the proximal convoluted tubule, or PCT. We have the loop of Henle going down, that's the descending limb. Going up is the descending limb. I'm sorry, going down is the descending limb, and going up is the ascending limb. And then further away from the glomerulus is another coiled tube, and we call that the distal convoluted tubule. So this is the proximal convoluted tubule. This is the distal convoluted tubule. The distal convoluted tubule, as you can see the arrow here, will bring urine to the collecting duct. So if we go back to our earlier picture right here, okay, so glomerulus, your renal tubules, and then your collecting duct. This collecting duct is actually one of these lines here, which make up your renal pyramid. So what happens in the nephron is urine formation. blood coming from the abdominal aorta until it branches out to the renal artery, until it becomes the smallest artery feeding the nephron, will ultimately become the afferent arteriole. So blood flows through the glomerulus. And what happens in the glomerulus is, because of an increase in hydrostatic pressure, mostly brought about by a difference in the size of the afferent and efferent, from large to smaller, the increase of pressure will cause the forcing of smaller substances out of the capillaries, and the larger molecules remain inside the glomerulus. Now, if you remember our lecture in transport mechanism, we said that the process by which large molecules are separated from small molecules by way of a membrane is called filtration. It's just like making coffee. This is your filter paper, and anything that's small will be filtered out. Anything that's large, like the coffee grinds, will remain in the capillaries. So here is a bigger picture of your glomerulus. Blood flows through the afferent arteriole, exits out into the efferent, but anything that is small will be pushed out or filtered out and will be caught in the Bowman's capsule right here. Okay? So imagine your capillaries being damaged. If there is damage to the capillaries, the red blood cells, the white blood cells, the proteins, which are basically large molecules, they will be leaking out of the glomerulus. They shouldn't be. In fact, they should return to the circulation because they cannot pass through the membrane. They are large molecules. Only water, glucose, amino acids, sodium, chloride, those are small enough that can be filtered. But the large molecules stay here. So if you have blood in your urine, that could also mean that there is damage in the glomerular capillaries, because damage here will allow the leakage of blood cells into the glomerulus and, of course, out in urine. Okay? Glomerular filtration, therefore, so filtration in the glomerulus, that is the very first process of urine formation. The second process of urine formation is reabsorption in the tubules. So even if substances were filtered out of the glomerulus, some of them we actually reabsorb back. Look at this arrow from the tubule going back to the blood. From the tubule going back to the blood. For example, glucose is our main fuel. We do not just excrete it out because it's our main source of energy. Amino acids are small, they are filtered out, but we do not take them out because they are building blocks of protein. They're important for tissue repair. So is water and sodium. Even if they're filtered out, they have to be reabsorbed back by the tubules because the body needs them. That actually is the second process of urine formation, which is tubular reabsorption. The last process of urine formation is tubular secretion. So sometimes we have still too much of a substance in the circulation. They may not have been filtered out. Enough of them were not enough were filtered out, but we still need to remove them from the body. So the last process is tubular secretion. So this time the arrow is from the blood into the tubules. So the tubules are able to secrete it out of the body or excrete it out of the body because, first of all, they may be considered bad for the body, like drugs and poisons and toxins. If they were not filtered, don't worry, the tubules will secrete them out. Excess hydrogen, which causes too much acids in the body, excess potassium, this will all be excreted out through tubular secretion. So once again, in urine formation, blood flows through the glomerulus, smaller substances filtered out, important nutrients reabsorbed back, not so important nutrients or excess will be excreted out until finally the end product is urine. So really, urine is considered an ultrafiltrate of blood.